Alright, let's just imagine for a second. You go to an event in early 2026, and after you start to get bored, you sit down at a console set up in the back and play a little known game. Don't know if you've ever heard of it, Super Smash Bros? You get home and decide, I'm gonna play Super Smash Bros. Oh. Okay. Any other platform fighters? God damn it. Wait. I'm a game developer. Okay, so not quite a full plug, but I'm making a game already, so I didn't want to just abandon my main game. I gave this project 5 days. Since we were snowed in and got off school, I decided to lock in for like 12 hours a day, which is the only reason this project was feasible. I decided that I would make every character in this game be a character from my main game, Classified Chaos. The first character works well to establish some fighting game mechanics and establish my logic with these movesets. Plate. He will be this game's swordy character, a staple in fighting games. This character was interesting because he basically laid the foundation for what these characters would feel like. I decided to go with a 3-element moveset. You have a forward, up, down, and idle attack. One of each as a neutral, and one of each as a special. You can do each of these combinations in the air to create a total of 16 moves. When creating the system for these moves, I came in with an initial 5 settings. Attack damage, which is how much damage is dealt when its hitbox comes in contact with another player. Attack knockback, which is exactly what it sounds like. Attack pause, which is the cooldown from the moment you throw out the attack to when it is usable again. Attack stun, which is how long from the moment of contact a player cannot move their character. And lastly, attack frames, which is how many frames after the hitbox is activated that it will check for players in its bounds. This initial setup worked great for the game's earliest versions, but its issues would arise later due to its sheer simplicity. But at this point, I had to tackle the game's biggest challenge, multiplayer. The appeal of these games is fighting your friends and family, so I obviously had to make that a priority. I wasn't, and never will make this an online multiplayer game. Instead, I went for local co-op, which means all players have to be playing through the same system. This was definitely a big hassle on the first day, but through the hours of the night I managed to get local co-op working. I used Unity's modern input system, which uses fancy function-based code on input rather than checking for global inputs. Blah 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 code stuff. It basically just allows me as the developer to distinguish when controller 1 presses A and when controller 2 presses A. Now all of this looks simple, and it really was at this point, but I was already a full day into this, and all I had was the framework for attacks, a few attacks on plate, and local co-op. But at this point, I could have fun. I started off day 2 by fleshing out Plate's moveset, which is where a lot of the game's mechanics would originate. I wanted Plate to be able to dash, so I added boost functionality. I wanted Plate to be able to drop a bomb, so I added projectile functionality. I wanted Plate to be able to shoot his gun, so I added weapon functionality. By the end of day 2, I had the base of Plate's moveset, and many more mechanics built into the attack handler. Day 3 started off with a playtest with my brother. We quickly got tired of the one character, which is where character 2 comes in. Bubbles the monkey. Bubbles was where I fully fleshed out projectiles. Most specials see him utilize those projectiles for damage, stage control, and even mobility. His neutrals are just basic attacks, but to make him more unique, I have him scale up his body parts to distinguish him and give him reach. I also had to polish off the game's movement to make each character their own. I split off the movement system to grab variables from a character type, meaning that just about every aspect of a character's movement can be tweaked or tinkered with to differentiate them from each other. Everything from max speed to fall gravity and even coyote jump time can be customized. And hell, I wanted some player expression, so I added costumes. This originated some classics, like Piss Monkey. I'm not going to explain myself, and yes, this is a kidney stone. Canonically. From here, days 3 and 4 rounded out with the introduction of 2 new characters, Maxilla and Palm. Maxilla uses grabs to be unique, and oh god, I did not think about balancing these. Palm also has a grab, but he acts more as a heavyweight with big brutish attacks that can be severely punished due to his poor movement and acceleration. To round out, and finally finish up the game's weakest elements, I added more stages. By this point, the game was great. I ran another playtest, and the vast amount of content and variations led to a lot of fun. But with one more day under my belt, I locked in. Day 5 consisted of adding one new character, the Jawbreaker. His gimmick was in trying to be a glass cannon, high knockback and high damage intake. but deals just as much damage and has heavy combos and kill moves. I failed miserably. He ended up being the laughingstock of the game. The Pichu. He is weak, he dies fast, and only has a couple of moves that can even attempt to kill. But honestly, I'm fine with this. I think these kinds of games should have a bad character. Someone who works to impress. If you can beat somebody with this guy, you can beat them with anything. Across day 5, I also patched up all the game's weakest spots, fixed some bugs, and wrapped a bow on the game. There were a couple of characters left on the drawing board, specifically the clown, who I would end up leaving behind due to a loss of interest and wanting to be done with this project. With the snow melting, school would be back in session, and I conducted one more playtest. To put it lightly, I absolutely cooked. This game definitely had some weak spots, but the foundation I had laid could be used to create a full-fledged game, and was an absolute blast in practice. But sadly, that's where this game was left. January came to a close, and so did platform fighting with 2 H's. Okay, get ready, because this was an absolute ride. I clocked in at least 30 hours across 3 days and added 3 new characters. Shadow the Clown brought back from the scrap pile a close-range sortie type character with projectiles. The Veteran, a true projectile-based character, using those to soften up your opponents, leading into a finisher move. And lastly, the Angel, another technical scrapped character. This character was originally going to be a different monster that was scrapped from Classified Chaos, but ended up falling under a new body, a puppeteer, summoning flesh men to control the scene, and using his specials to control and maintain those men. Realistically, this was just one big content update. Another 3 maps were added to the game to add a tad more variety. The new characters, a duos mode, and changing the stocks you have at the beginning of a round. General settings like that. Just for fun, we can add up a bunch of multiplication statements to determine that there are now 154,320 combinations that players can run with. But definitely, one of the best changes was in upgrading the game's systems. Primarily, knockback was given a complete overhaul, factoring in both players' velocities and the general knockback influence setting on that attack. The combat encourages heavier and longer combos, a more punishing and generally difficult gameplay. I'm also dabbling in CPU characters to challenge so players can get some practice in. But practice for what? Well, while this is definitely ambitious, I thought it would be fun to host a big tournament for this game to give it a big send-off. The tournament is currently being set up and will likely take place in a week or so from this video's release. To stay updated, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and show some support. If you'd like to see some of my other projects, the card at the top right should lead you to the Classified Chaos development playlist. Have a good day, and hopefully I'll see you sometime in the future.
Okay.